Hey, how's it going? This is Leverbolt 76. I'm Chad, and today we're going to talk about the first short mag cartridge, the 284 Winchester. And I have one in a Savage Model 99. Alright, let's get after it. The 284 Winchester began life in 1963, and it was designed by the engineers at Winchester. Now, what they were trying to do with the design of this cartridge was Winchester had just came out with the Autoloader 100 and the Model 88 lever action. So they were looking for a short action cartridge for these rifles that would equal the performance of a 270 Winchester or 280 Remington. What they came up with was a 284 Winchester. So the overall length of this cartridge was about the same as a 308, but it had wider, straighter case walls to be able to handle more powder. And it actually held the same amount of powder as a 270 Winchester or 280 Remington. So really, they did a pretty good job with the design of it. And this is actually a very unique cartridge. The 284 was not designed off of the 30-06 or the 308 or the 375 H&H. The 284 is unique to itself. So why don't we have a look at the chart and we can go through the ballistics of it and see how it stacks up. You can see I have matched up the 284 with the 270 Winchester, the 7mm 08 Remington, the 308 Winchester, and the 7mm mag. I put the 7mm mag in there so we can see how the 284, a short action cartridge, stacks up against a Magnum cartridge of the same caliber. All cartridges in this chart have a 150 grain PowerPoint bullet except the 708. The heaviest bullet I could find for it was 140 grain. Everything is zeroed at 200 yards, so this should be a pretty good comparison. If we start with the muzzle velocities, I don't see a very measurable difference between any of them except for the rim mag, which we will just set aside for now. We literally have a difference of 60 feet per second from the fastest to the slowest. What's interesting to me is the 284, a short cartridge, is 10 feet per second faster than the 270, a long-action cartridge. We do, however, start to see a difference with energy at the muzzle, mainly with the 708, as it only has a 140 grain bullet with 300 less foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle. I think what is most interesting is when we go out to 400 yards, how much everything changes. The 284 and the 270 are still very close to one another in speed, 1,886 feet per second from the 284 and 1,185 foot-pounds, while the 270 is 1,879 feet per second with 1,175 foot-pounds, almost identical. So I would say the engineers at Winchester definitely reached their goal of creating a short-action cartridge that matches the performance of the long-action 270, and in fact, ever so slightly beat it. Also, at 400 yards, you can see how much the 708 and the 308 have dropped off in speed and energy, which is just a consequence of a little bit less powder. Let's go back to the 7mm mag, though, at 400 yards. With a 150 grain bullet, it is obviously doing better than everything else, but not a huge amount. It's only 185 feet per second faster than the 284, with about 250 more foot-pounds, and about 5 inches less drop, which I think in a hunting situation you would probably recognize that benefit of the 7mm mag, but the 284 is definitely hanging in there. Not bad at all for a short-action cartridge made to be used in a lever-action rifle. Alright, I think we better talk about the rifle. This is a Savage Model 99F. And the F stands for featherweight. This particular rifle was made in 1967. Now, how do we know this is an F? Well, on one hand, you've got that gold trigger there They only put this on that gold trigger on the featherweights and then some of the DLs and CDs. As you can see, it's not loaded as usual. And then we also have that jeweled bolt on there. Kind of dressed it up a little bit. They also hollowed out the stock a little bit more than they typically would and gave it a little bit lighter forearm on there. This one being made in 1967. It has a tang safety rather than the lever safety. And this particular rifle has the factory sling swivels, and this one is the only one I've ever seen, but it has a kind of a barrel boss or a band for that swivel, which I think is fairly unique. I've never seen one anyway. And then we've got a Weaver K4-W mounted on it. That's a fixed 4-power Weaver scope. It was manufactured in the late 70s to early 80s in Denver, Colorado, of all places. And I think Weaver and Redfield were kind of in cahoots a little bit there, because Redfield was making the same type of scope around that time. But it's got the duplex reticle in it, great optics. For a fixed 4-power scope, this thing really works well. Alright, well, I tell you what, why don't you go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel. And I think we're going to take this thing out to the range and see if we can't hit anything with it. We made it out bright and early this morning. Tried to get out here before that sun peeks over the top of the hill and shines right in our eyes so we can have some good shooting light. I've got these 150 grain soft points. To my knowledge, they're the only cartridges anybody's ever made for this. It was made by Winchester. But we're going to go ahead and send 5 of them out there and see how tight a group we can get. Well, that's not too bad. What I'm seeing there, I see this high one. I don't know if that was my warm-up shot. I got a straight 4-power scope on that thing, so it's pretty hard to see holes, but either way, I got 1, 2, maybe 2 there. Hopefully that's my warm-up shot. If so, that's not too bad a group.